Now, a new study has revealed the U.S. use of unmanned aerial vehicles is increasing under President Donald Trump. A study conducted by Stimson Center suggests that Trump has given American commanders greater leeway to authorize drone strikes without first seeking approval from Washington. Washington has been carrying out drone attacks in several Muslim countries such as Afghanistan, Pakistan, Somalia, and Yemen, despite strong opposition from their governments and people. U.S. claims its drone strikes target terrorists, but reports on the ground indicate that civilians have been the main victims of such attacks. And joining us now out of Ontario for more on this is Mr. Jason Unruhe, political commentator and analyst. Hello, Jason. It's a pleasure to have you back on the program now. Such a controversial program, and it has tons of casualties attached to it. So why expand a program such as this with so many flaws?
Well, essentially the way that a drone works is that there's no direct U.S. soldier involvement on the ground. It's very hard to prove a U.S. involvement. Right now, obviously, if there's a drone strike in a country where the U.S. is present, then of course it's very likely that the U.S. has done it. Now, paying a drone operator is cheaper than sending a squad of soldiers out to hit a particular target, because all it requires is one operator and the cost of flying the drone. This makes it much easier. There's far less soldiers involved in the actual event. There's less likely that people are going to know about it. Overall, it's just a more efficient way of carrying out warfare. Unfortunately, it also frequently targets innocent people, something that you wouldn't be able to determine from the air, which is why so many wedding parties have been attacked in numerous countries throughout the Middle East, particularly where the U.S. is involved in conflict. The problem is that some of the drones are even automated. They don't have the capacity to double check something on the ground. Even an operator doesn't have much of an ability to really check out the target. Generally speaking, all they see is a large group of people moving in a particular direction, and they just send in the drone to strike, because with nothing really on the ground, there's nothing but the word of the people involved. It's a very inhumane way to carry a war, if I may use an oxymoron in that case. But the reason that this is continuing to go on is because it's much more palatable to the American public and to many of the countries that use drones in general, because at no point is any soldier from the country with the drone actually in danger. So overall, you have less casualties on. They have less casualties on their own side. Money-wise, it's far more efficient to carry out drone strikes, and all in all, with less people available to witness the event, the less general outrage there even is. There is a general formula that's being carried out. The U.S. comes in, drone strikes a pile of civilians, it kills a lot of people. Then the U.S. says, when they're criticized for it, they say, "Oh, we'll investigate," and they usually wait about 2 weeks, and then when it's up, they come back and say, "Oh, yes, it was an accident. It was a wedding party. It was an accident. We didn't mean to do it," etc. And the whole process begins all over again in a few days. It becomes very hard to hold anybody accountable, because a lot of the drone operators have a plausible deniability because they couldn't double check to make sure. It's just a very sadistic way of carrying out warfare and isolating the people involved in the conflict from the people that are harmed. And frankly, I'm not surprised that.
So then why would Donald Trump go out of his way to deregulate the program as opposed to try to tighten it up?
Well, the reason would be so that there could be less accountability. This is along the same reasons why a lot of private contractors are used for operations inside of conflict zones where the U.S. are operating. The less oversight there is, the less culpability there can be for crimes that are carried out. We recall the previous incident with the Blackwater mercenaries, which killed 17 civilians. They were eventually one of the few times they were actually put on trial and convicted. These are not they were not U.S. soldiers, so they don't count for general. They don't count for the war statistics. Their deaths don't count either. They don't count as something that the U.S. military did, and thus the U.S. military can rather wash its hands of it. The less oversight there is, the more human rights violations they can get away with, the more killings they can carry out without having to record anything or keep records in case of, like I say, when a group of civilians are killed. It just, in general, it lets them get away with more. The less oversight there is, the more they're going to get away with.
Thank you, Jason, for joining us and for your input. Out of Ontario, Canada is Mr. Jason Unruhe, political commentator and analyst.